Hello everyone, my name is Kalyana Pendit and today I'm going to explain an overview of next generation network. What exactly is NGN or next generation network? NGN is a concept for near future telecommunications and network. ITUT defines NGN as a packet-based network that has the capability of utilizing multiple broadbands over fixed, mobile, and wireless. It is a QoS or quality of service enabled transport technologies with service related functions independent of underlying transport related technologies. The idea is that a single network transmits all the data and service by encapsulating them in IP packets. So, right here is a block diagram of the engine. In the previous generation of networking, the internet bandwidth is limited, and by utilizing NGN, the network is then combined and then it is separated virtually. So now the service is broadband and it allows for fixed, mobile, and wireless networking. In NGN, there are three key principles, which are open architecture, independent provisioning, and multiplicity. Open architecture is that of an open source. It has an open architecture for third parties to support service updating, service creation, incorporation of service logic provision, and to support distributed control. For the independent provisioning, the service provisioning is independent from the network operation by utilizing distributed and open control mechanism so that it promotes competition between companies. And the last one is multiplicity, which means that the configuration for flexibility in order to support multiple access technologies in the functional architecture of NGN. Okay, next. Okay, so here are some of the list of features of the NGN. There are the packet-based transfer, the separation of control functions, decoupling of service provision from transport, support for a wide range of services based on service building blocks, broadband capabilities with end-to-end QoS, interworking with legacy networks via open interfaces, generalized mobility, unfettered access by users to different service providers, a variety of identification schemes, unified service characteristics for the same service, converged services between fixed or mobile, support of multiple last mile technologies, compliant with all regulatory requirements, and etc. Okay, here is a figure of NGN basic reference model. So here there are two main blocks, which are the NGN service layer and the NGN transport layer. Each of these layer has three plane which are similar, which are the user plane, control plane, and management plane. This NGN service layer can be imagined or equivalent to that of e-commerce apps, ride-hailing apps, food and package delivery apps, and etc. And it has the user plane, which connects the user to the applications, the control plane, which controls the data for the user, and the management plane on how the provider manages its users. So now let's move on to the NGN transport layer. This layer is equivalent to that of internet providers. In the user plane is the information related to what has been done in the service layer in the data packet. The control plane is the algorithm for the application, and the management plane is where the application charge the user. Okay, here there are two figures of NGN architecture. Both of these is actually quite similar, and the figure on the left is the NGN architecture from the provider perspective, while on the right one it is from the service perspective. Okay, so now let's break it down in the provider perspective first. So the first one is the applications. In the applications, it is basically what users can do. From here, it connects into a stratum, the service stratum, and there are also the transport stratum right here, which I will explain later. The application connects to the application support functions and serve and support functions. So the user profile functions right here connects to the other NGN service components, and it also connects to the PSTN or ISDN emulation service components and to that of IP multimedia service component. And from the service stratum, it is then connected to the transport stratum, where it connects to the user profile functions, which is the network attachment control functions, and the resource and admission control functions. And from there, the access network functions combines this architecture, this newer architecture with the older or the legacy architecture right here. So that's basically the short explanation of this architecture, and for this one it is basically from the service perspective. Okay, so now let's move on into the impacts of the NGN. So the figure on the left is the older architecture, while the right is the one that is implementing NGN. And as you can see from both of these figures, it shows that it is more simplified when using NGN. In the NGN, it can take voice, internet, video, and multimedia, which is then converted into managed IP platforms and then transmitted with optic-based fixed or mobile. And as you can see, it is far more simpler. And for the second figure, it shows that the connection in between this layer, the national layer, regional layer, Lex, RU, and customer layers are far more complicated. And while in the NGN, it is far more simplified. And as you can see right here, this blue box is the powerful server, and this 5 blocks is the distributed server, and here are the server near the user. And the connection is much more simplified, and it is single layer transit network. So now let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of NGN. For the advantages for the providers, it reduces the capital expenses and the operational expenses. For the capital expenses, it is due to the integrated and efficient IP-based technology, while for the operating expenses, it is due to the less power consumption, smaller cost needed, less spaces, and etc. The next thing is the easier management. It is easier to manage since there is only a single network layer, and thus separating network for data, voice, and video is not required. And for the subscribers, it of course reduces charge, and it generates new innovative services with fast speed. And for the downsides of this is that it still has some regulation issues, and it's still a little bit complex for the migration process of the old legacy systems, and that not every older infrastructure can be shut down. Okay, so thank you for your attention. Goodbye.